Hey everybody, Rob here. Like I mentioned in my previous videos, I've been playing and testing the pre-launch version of Diablo 4. And I've taken an in-depth look at the Barbarian class. One of the strongest builds I've found there is the Whirlwind Barbarian, which is like very good news to me because I love the Spin to Win playstyle. I already made a build guide video like explaining the full guide in detail. You can see that somewhere around here. But I will also provide a short overview at the end. Today I want to show you what a high nightmare dungeon with the Whirlwind Barbarian looks like, and I have some footage here that I recorded. I actually managed to clear the highest nightmare dungeon that was available in this version of the game that I got to play. I don't know if this is going to be the final tier, but it was definitely quite challenging in terms of toughness, and you really had to like have a fully built out and decked out character to even have a chance of clearing it. So yeah, in the background here you will see the footage that I'll be playing now, and I will try to go with the footage and try to explain to you what's even going on. So let's go. So first thing here, this is a nightmare sigil. I'm pretty sure you've seen screenshots of this. They're basically the keys you need to enter the dungeons, and like you can see here, this is a tier 100 key, which like I said earlier, is the highest one that is currently available. You can see there is always a positive effects here, like using evade leaves the pool behind the damages enemies, and then there's a lot of negativity. So these are like not really too bad for me. Like the only effects here that it really sucks is the duration of the vulnerable effect is reduced by 60%. That's pretty significant because I do basically a lot of vulnerable damage. But this was the only 100 key that I had because, like I said, it wasn't easy to play all the way up to those tiers, and even to craft them. Like you have like a 1 in 10 chance to get them, and it costs a lot of materials. So you basically right-click this key. It will consume the sigil. It will mark the dungeon on the map. You can see where it is, and then you go to the nearest waypoint. And actually here I think I misclicked, so it didn't take me to the waypoint, but now I'm at the waypoint and I'm just like basically going to the dungeon. You can always use your horse to travel there faster. And what I like to do, you can like leave these little markers on the map. Those really like help a lot to just navigate. They give you like an approximate line. You can see it up here in the minimap, like where an efficient path would be. It's not always 100% accurate, but still it's pretty decent. You also have a speed boost on your horse here that I can activate with my spacebar. Like you notice when I activate it, my horse is like going quite a bit faster. I would say like about double the movement speed. Okay, and then here we load into the dungeon. So you can see now that we are at the entrance. You see Witchwater, and there is only a certain amount of revives you have in each dungeon. If you die 4 times, you cannot reset. The dungeon is a fail, the key is lost, the clear has not been completed. So you can see right away here, I'm playing triple shout. I'm basically shouting to get my fury, to get my toughness. And then these are like the first trash monsters. And you see my damage is actually kind of good here on this tier. You see it vulnerable, procs instantly, it's from my Paragon Glyph. You see, like, I can, like, kind of kill these monsters very nicely, and you can see, like, I'm playing a bleed build. Like, these guys are all bleeding, basically, taking extra damage. And what I always try to do is to accumulate as much damage with my Whirlwind because of my Gore Gloves that basically make you stack all this damage and then release it in, like, a fiery explosion around your characters. So you see here, this room has a lot of elites, and we're struggling quite a bit. Also, I apologize for the footage here. It's cutting out some... like losing some bitrate or something sometimes. I got a Blast Wave Shrine here, so that one really helps out a lot. The wave itself does like damage in the millions, which is like really good, especially for this pack, because there's like 5 elites here, 1 pixel. You can see my life. If I'm spending too much time in there, I'm definitely dying very quickly. I also have the Iron Skin here. It gives me a barrier, which is like very helpful. It gives me some damage. It also gives me some more toughness. And yeah, the first objective, I almost died there. The first objective here is to free like prisoners. I have 4 left, and you can see here I really need to be like mindful and careful of how long am I going to stay in. I need to really have my buffs up in order to even like stand in there for like a second, because else I just die. And yeah, the Barb is really reliant on challenging shout here. If I wouldn't have had a challenging shout, I would pretty much die like in 1 shot essentially, because they even take half my life with challenging shout, and it gives me about 80% damage reduction with my current stacking of skill ranks there. So you notice here I'm always trying to lure the way or kill the monsters before I click the objectives, because if they touch me without my buffs up, like I'm insta dead. Then these elites here I can like comfortably skip, because you don't need to kill every elite. In fact, the elites are like very, very dangerous here, and I was mainly focusing on the objectives to kill the final boss, to get the experience, to get the glyph experience, to get the upgrades and all that stuff. So next thing here in this pool, you can see me like doing quite some good amount of damage, because I managed to accumulate quite a lot of damage here with these trash monsters and explode them. But then they also explode me, so you see how easy it can be to die here basically. But yeah, if we watch that one final time, we're gonna try to stop. You see, there's like a 600 million explosion of accumulated damage I did with Whirlwind. And then I think they do some poison explosion or something that basically one-shots me, even though I had my buffs up. So yeah, if you die, sometimes there's a checkpoint. I'm not really sure about the exact mechanics, but most of the time I just respawn at the beginning of a dungeon. And you see I only have 3 revives left now, 1 is gone. So if I die 3 more times, the run is over, but yeah, thankfully I managed to like, I think I avoided further death. But yeah, you can see here, like I was trying a bit in the 90s and my equipment is not broken. It would be red, it's like orange, so it's like close to breaking, so I definitely like shouldn't die anymore. And you see here, like they touch me and the damage is insane. Like without my barrier, without my fortify, I would be dead there, right there. So that's why I stack all these defensive buffs. They're just required. Here again, this elite is applying some poison that really, really hurts. Okay, here's the next objective. I have to kill these ward things. And I think here I also gathered like quite a lot of elites. So it's mostly about surviving in these tiers. Like my DPS, at least on this Whirlwind build I'm playing, and also other builds. I was playing a Rend Bleed build, and also a Hammer of the Ancients build, and they were similar in DPS output. A bit worse in like movement speed and stuff, but DPS output was actually rather similar. But yeah, you see here I have to do quite a bit of kiting, so I can't just like face tank at everything. And I actually managed to kill the objective here. And yeah, these elites are very hard to kill, so I decided to skip them basically. I only have 1 objective left before I have to fight the boss. And this build is really like an AoE focused build, but you will see later on the boss fight. I just realized that there was no objective down here, so I need to head up again. And then you can see like all my buffs up here. Like this is an armor buff here, it gives me lots of toughness. These are my this is my challenging shot, gives me another toughness buff. Damage buff, this is berserking. This other one is a bleed buff that I get. This one is limitless rage, the 60 stacks. I'll go over the gear, or you check out the video I posted a couple days ago. And yeah, the final objective here is on the left side. So I'm trying to clear that one. And if there's good density, I'm doing good damage. It's very similar to like the Barber in Diablo 3, if you're familiar. Like you basically accumulate damage on trash, then you kill it with a big explosion. But here you can see on the boss fight, my damage is not the best. I'm still getting like some decent bleeds in. And I have to dodge a couple things here because I do have challenging shout like downtime when there's only 1 target. Right now I have it permanently. But sometimes if it's a single target, because he has ads, and I should really wait for the ads before I activate my Warcries. You can see here if the boss HP bar turns blue, that's where I'm doing my most damage, because that's where I apply vulnerable. But it's on lucky hits, so I don't have it permanently. So here I managed to stagger the boss, which also helps a lot with damage, and he was vulnerable as well, so that was like some good chunk of DPS, but I really have to be careful, because if I get hit by his poisons attacks, I'm most likely one-shot. So I have to like dodge a bit. I'm always going behind this pillar, because yeah, it's really, really helpful to avoid his attacks. And yeah, we're just like basically spinning on him, fighting him, and you see like when there's vulnerable, I'm doing like 1.5 million hits, and then my bleed is doing like pretty decent damage. It's ticking for like 150k, like twice a second as well. So it's like some very nice additional like bleed damage right on the target. And yeah, we are just like trying to not die, trying to keep our buffs up, and definitely don't want to be standing in these poison things. And here I managed to stagger the boss a second time. This is due to my shouts. Casting them this often adds to the stagger bar of the boss, and man, we managed to clear the Nightmare Dungeon 100. This was the highest tier again in this version, and there's also an achievement, Nightmare Grandmaster, that you unlock when you cleared it, so this is my first clear. And then you can see you get some rewards like XP and golds and a legendary item, a rare item. And I also got another key, Nightmare Dungeon key. And I'm not 100% sure, but I think the tier 100 always drops another tier 100. And it never goes to tier 101. So I assume for now that's the max. And you can see the stats here. Like, this is actually pretty decent stats. 9 crit chance as a positive buff, and the rest isn't too bad. The barrier one can hurt a bit, but overall not too bad a key. And yeah, I'm gonna now go over the build real quick, like just hovering item by item. Like, again, I have a full video explaining like how this build works. But yeah, this is basically the core item of this build. Like, this unique gloves really like enables the build to be able to like clear this high, even because, like I said, you can accumulate the damage on trash monsters. Like, let's say I'm whirlwinding on 100 small spiders. I'm doing like hundreds and ticks of damage in millions. And then I accumulate them all, and 60% of it I can release at will whenever I let go of my whirlwind button. And I can one-shot elites, I can one-shot probably even bosses with that if you manage to like snapshot it or take the damage while you whirlwind into the boss room. I've done it before. It's possible, but it's hard. It really depends on the dungeon. And then here, this is another unique that gives you barrier. Whenever you heal above maximum life, has a really nice synergy with some bar passives, with the shouts as well, because they heal you constantly, and they become really strong. But again, guys, like, these are like 2 unique items. You might not find them like very fast. It may take a couple hours, a couple more hours, a couple weeks maybe even. So this is like an end game build. Boots, movement speed, you can see here all the multipliers, basically more DPS, more fury regeneration, attack power, armor. I have like over 1k main stat even, so it's going pretty good. And then here, what's really important as well is the crit chance. And you can see here, I have, even though I have the weapon that gives me up to 80% when I channel for a long time, I still want to have a very high base crit chance. So I only need to channel for like 2 seconds to be at 100% efficiency, especially like during speedrun content. And even this high nightmare dungeon, it doesn't really like take that long, you know. Like in D3, I'm used to like 15-minute clear, and here like I can do it in like 5 minutes basically, or the highest tier. But we'll see if that's going to change in the future. The second thing I'm stacking is vulnerable damage, because it is a separate multiplier to other sources of damage. And yeah, it's just a really, really strong stat on the barb, especially because you have like 4 weapons and you can like stack 400. One thing I forgot about the crit damage is that I have not been able to find the grandfather. And according to some data mines, the grandfather gives you a double multiplier on crit damage. So potentially the barb, if it really works like that as a separate multiplier, it could reach 1,000 crit damage. That would mean that every crit basically does more than 10 times of your base damage. That would be insane. But yeah, I have not found it here, and obviously you have to drop another aspect if you want to get that in. Yeah, damage to close, damage to crowd-controlled enemies, like that kind of stuff I'm stacking. Damage to bleeding enemies is fine as well, because I'm constantly bleeding everything with my whirlwind. Yeah, it's just like some mats that I farmed. The expertise slot, also more damage to vulnerable. This is a separate multiplier, really good. 200 sword is what I'm using in my main hand. This is inflicting some parts of the bleed. The other part is coming from my whirlwind skill. And it's also increasing bleed damage again. And it's a slashing weapon that you need to have the whirlwind that I'm playing active. So you see here, I'm going way too fast. Sorry about that. Hopefully I'll manage to stop this time. Need to have the good reaction times here. Yeah, okay. You see here, like, barely you can see it. When using a slashing weapon, whirlwind inflicts 40% of its base as bleeding damage. So this is like 40% of all the damage that you dealt is inflicted as bleed again. And this actually got buffed pretty heavily. I think it was 20% in the open beta. And then in the server slam, and now in this pre-version of the game, it got doubled to 40%, so it's really strong. Yeah, then we have Rallying Cry for resources, Iron Skin to survive, you saw it, I needed it many times, Challenging Shout to survive, definitely want this, very nice synergy, Pressure Point for lucky hit, War Cry, more DPS, and then here I take like all the defensive ones, like I have healing, I have damage reduction, and I have longer duration on the War Cries, because you need it. And then here, Pit Fighter, more damage to close enemies, no mercy, You basically crowd control all the time with the hamstring rune that is here. I'm going to show it to you in a second. And it's even more crit chance than was in my sheet. So I have probably like more than 50% crit chance right here. And then, yeah, this hamstring is really important. All your bleed effects slow the enemy. And slow also counts as a crowd control. So not only do you slow, do you get extra damage against slowed enemies, but you also can get extra damage against crowd controlled enemies. From your rings, from your weapons, and so on and so on. So just even more DPS. This 1 point in hamstring is really important, guys, on this build. Yeah, next thing here is some of the fortify mechanics, thick skin and counter offensive. When I'm fortified, I take less damage, but I also deal more damage. And as you saw in the video, unless I'm getting one-tapped, I'm basically always fortified. That's the goal anyway. For my ultimate here, first of all, there's heavy-handed, another multiplier on the crit damage. This one is insane as well. And as my ultimate, I'm using Wrath of the Berserk. I'm spending a lot of fury with Unbridled Rage. So I'm also generating a lot of fury. On the other hand, with like Rallying Cry and various sources from my Paragon, from the gear. So this effect here really comes online. You spend 50 fury and you get a damage bonus. You get some movement speed. You get even more fury generation. So this thing is insane. Like, it boosts my damage by so much. Yeah, and then the Unbridled Rage, it's just so strong. Like, you spend more fury, but that can actually be like a good thing as well, because you can heal with spending fury. You can activate like various other effects when you spend and then generate fury at the same time. And obviously this one has a very strong multiplier for all of our damage. Then we come to the Paragon boards. I'm just going to quickly skim over it, because the Paragon board system can be rather complicated, and you can go very in-depth and min-max a lot there. So I'll probably going to make in the next days a separate video about this. This is also not complete optimal path. It's just the path that I had for now. I didn't really like completely like reset it like 5 times. I will do that going forward, I guess, in the planner. So you can see here on the starter board, I have closed enemies. Like, obviously with Whirlwind, we're always in melee range. And yeah, we really benefit also from damage reduction here that we have. We take this in the starter board because it's very efficient to just spec 39 decks. There could be other boards where you can get more decks, but you have to have the starter board, and I think this is the best glyph, a deck scaling one, to put in there for this build. Then we have the Marshal. This one gives a shout cooldown reduction, and it has armor and physical nodes in range here, so that makes it like really strong. And yeah, you can also put this in the starter board, but then here you spend a bit more points in speccing into 39 decks, so I prefer it this way. Next board is the Warbringer board. This is what enables my my Fortify. So I've talked about this earlier. With Unbridled Rage, we actually spend a lot of fury when we Whirlwind, and this actually helps us. Like, it's not necessarily a negative thing if you spend a lot of fury. It can also be a positive thing with effects like this, so you get a lot of Fortify when you use it. And here's some Fortify nodes, and here's Hunter Killer, more elite damage. This one is more vulnerable. This is, I think, the best glyph on the Barbarian. I think many classes even have it. It's not Barb specific. Like, it applies vulnerable to everything for 3 seconds, and then it has 20-second cooldown. So for speed farming, this is like god tier. For this high content, I mean, I kind of was speed farming this 100. It didn't really take too long, but I definitely dropped vulnerable a couple times, and that's where pressure point comes in. On lucky hit, you core skill proc more vulnerable. But overall, like, you also get a 120% vulnerable damage bonus. And again, this is a multiplier, so it's really strong. And 49 decks, you definitely want to max out or put this in a board where you have a lot of decks in range. Hungering Fury, this one gives like Fury on kill, which is also super good. Like, it basically generates your Fury if you're killing like small monsters. Then we have the Decimator, Glyph Sockets, damage while Fortify, really strong, more damage reduction. Just good overall with more vulnerable damage in range. Crit damage with core skills. Whirlwind is a core skill. We get more crit damage. The secondary part here is also really important. Yeah, critical strikes just generate more Fury. It just all adds up to get even more Fury. It's fantastic. And then in the last Paragon board here, I didn't fully populate it yet. I want to put the Imberer, like, more damage while healthy, because I have the Fortify, I have the Barrier. Like, they need to damage me quite a bit before they even touch my health. But I haven't unlocked all the Renown, so I did not have enough Paragon points to put it in yet. But yeah, that's basically the Paragon board, guys. That's the 100. I now get my reward. I can upgrade my glyphs. I'm upgrading Wrath for more damage, with more crit damage with core skills. And then yeah, I got the new consumable. Couple of like 80s, 90s, 100s. I've been playing loads. And yeah, it's some pretty good stuff. And yeah, you can see here, like, I didn't like even finish all my Renown. So all the regions I have not done the last thing because it takes long. But yeah, guys, This was the showcase of the Nightmare Dungeon 100 clear. I hope you liked the video. I have a lot more content coming over the next days here, and I'll be blasting, I'll be streaming the entire launch, and it's gonna be amazing, guys. Get the game, tune in, play. You're gonna have a good time. It's gonna be fantastic. So stay tuned for all of that. Rob over and out. See ya, guys. Bye bye.